72 cameras, a nine-figure fortune, and still he couldn't sleep at night. Sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? But for Liam Hawthorne, it was just his life. He was a man who had everything, except perhaps peace of mind. And that's why he'd just hired a quiet, utterly broke maid. Not because he needed the help. Not really. He hired her for one reason only: to catch her stealing. What he never ever planned on was what she would actually do when the lights went off and he wasn't looking, or so he thought. Section 1. The SETUP. Then, Sophie Whitmore walked into his perfectly curated, sterile world. She wore a second-hand blouse, faded but meticulously clean, and clutched a resume that spoke volumes without saying much at all. It listed 2 humble cleaning jobs, a disheartening layoff, and 1 semester of nursing school tragically cut short when her mother fell ill. You could see it in her eyes, in the way she held her shoulders. In the quiet determination that radiated from her, she needed 90 days of steady pay. Nothing more, nothing less. Just enough to get by, to keep hope alive. Liam, ever the pragmatist, gave her 24 hours to prove her worth, but not in the way she expected. He set his first test, a simple, almost crude one. He left $5,000 crisp $100 bills in a crumpled, seemingly forgotten envelope on the antique foyer table. It was practically screaming to be noticed. Then he retreated. He sat behind the one-way mirror of his study, a hidden sanctuary of suspicion, his finger hovering over the security remote. He watched, he waited. He fully expected to see her pocket it to confirm his cynical worldview. Sophie passed the envelope twice, a feather duster gently gliding around it, never even glancing down, not a flicker of interest. She was focused, diligent, almost oblivious to the temptation. Frustrated, Liam upped the ante. He decided to make it more personal, more alluring. He placed a loose diamond cufflink, one of his father's, sparkling subtly, right beside the guest room sink. It was impossible to miss. Sophie entered, humming a soft, almost imperceptible tune. She saw it, of course. She picked it up, her fingers delicate and precise, and set it carefully on the counter, away from the edge. She wiped the marble clean, then moved on, her task completed, the cufflink untouched. Night after night, Liam watched the security feeds. Every camera, every angle, every silent movement. And night after night, nothing. No suspicious glances, no lingering touches, no sudden movements. His suspicion, initially a cold, hard certainty, slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to morph. It turned into a nagging curiosity, then an undeniable compulsion. Who was this girl? What kind of person could resist such obvious temptations, seemingly without effort, without even a second thought? The meticulous, cynical billionaire found himself utterly baffled and perhaps a little intrigued. 3 weeks into this silent surveillance, Liam decided to escalate. He needed a direct interaction, a moment where the temptation was almost irresistible, and the consequences immediate. He pretended to doze off on the plush leather sofa in the living room, his wallet half out of his back pocket, a generous wad of cash peeking out like an invitation. His cameras, of course, streamed directly to his phone, ensuring he wouldn't miss a single beat. Sophie tiptoed in her movements, as quiet as a whisper. She saw the cash, an undeniable allure, sticking out like a rogue page in a meticulously kept book. Liam held his breath, his heart thudding a strange rhythm against his ribs. This was it. This was the moment. And then she gently slid the wallet deeper into his pocket, ensuring it wouldn't fall out. She then drew a soft cashmere blanket over him, a gesture of unexpected tenderness. And as she turned to leave, a whisper, barely audible, escaped her lips. "Thank you for the job, sir." That whisper. It wasn't just words. It was a soft, warm crack in the hardened shell around his heart. It wasn't defiance, it wasn't greed, it was pure, unadulterated gratitude. It was a sound that resonated deeper than any accusation or defense. From that moment on, something shifted profoundly within him. He started looking forward to the footage, not with a detective's scrutiny, but with a strange, burgeoning anticipation. He saw her singing softly to herself while polishing the antique silver, always the same gentle lullaby, a melody that somehow filled the cavernous mansion with warmth. He noticed how she double-knotted the gardener's trash bags, small, thoughtful detail, so they wouldn't split in the rain. He saw the anonymous sticky notes she'd leave on the cook's locker after his chemo days. Simple messages like, "You got this. Hang in there." Small, quiet acts of kindness that went unnoticed by everyone else. But not by the 72 cameras, and certainly not by Liam, the billionaire who, by all accounts, had everything, every material possession. Every luxury imaginable, suddenly realized with a startling clarity that he'd been starving for one profound, intangible thing: simple, quiet, unadulterated kindness. He'd built walls of wealth and suspicion, only to find himself utterly alone within them. One evening, unable to bear the silent observation any longer, he stepped out from behind the mirror, metaphorically and literally. He offered to drive her home. Sophie blushed, a faint, lovely color against her pale skin, and politely declined, insisting the bus was perfectly fine. Liam, however, insisted, a new, unfamiliar urge to connect driving him. During the ride, the silence was initially thick, but slowly, tentatively, Sophie began to open up. She told him about the accusations that had gotten her fired from a previous hotel job. A guest had claimed Sophie stole a bracelet that, embarrassingly, later rolled out from under a dresser. No apology ever came. Her voice was steady, but her eyes, fixed on the passing scenery outside the windshield, held a deep, quiet pain. "I don't take what isn't mine," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor of memory. "I just want to be worth hiring." Liam felt the immense, crushing weight of every single test he'd set, every subtle trap he'd laid. The shame was a physical ache in his chest. He saw not a potential thief, but a woman of profound integrity, scarred by injustice, yet still holding on to her dignity with fierce resolve. The following Monday, a new kind of energy buzzed through the Hawthorne estate. Liam, without a word of explanation, doubled Sophie's wage. Not just a slight raise, but a full, undeniable doubling. And then he instructed HR to immediately enroll her in the company's comprehensive health plan. Sophie, completely overwhelmed, tried to hide her tears in the pantry, thinking no one saw her quiet, choked sobs of relief and gratitude. But Liam saw. He watched from a discreet distance, and for the very first time, he felt a wave of shame so acute, so vivid, it was like seeing it in 4,000 resolution. The sheer injustice of his initial suspicions, the callousness of his tests, hit him with full force. He could have ended the charade right then and there. He could have confessed everything, apologized profusely. But a strange mix of Prida's stubborn refusal to admit how wrong he'd been, plus a profound, almost illogical fear that she might leave if she knew the truth, kept the confession locked firmly behind his lips. Instead, he funneled all that newfound complicated energy into action. He began to help others, anonymously, quietly. He paid the gardener's medical bills, ensuring his treatments continued without financial stress. He funded college accounts for the security guard's children, securing futures he'd never even considered before. These were small yet significant mirrors of the quiet, unassuming generosity Sophie gave so freely, so naturally. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, a ripple of change spread through the entire staff. They began to whisper, first in hushed tones, then with growing conviction, that the boss had softened. The cold, distant, hyper-vigilant Liam Hawthorne was different. He was kinder, more approachable, almost human. But only Liam knew the true catalyst, the quiet force who had softened him, who had chipped away at the cynical armor he'd worn for decades. It was Sophie, the maid he'd hired to catch stealing, who had in fact caught him in the act of becoming a better man.